If you're a Fortnite mobile player that is brand new to the mobile ecosystem, or you're just someone who hasn't played Fortnite mobile or mobile shooters in a few years, then trying to edit your controls and your heads-up display in Fortnite mobile can seem like a daunting and almost impossible task. But as someone who's been playing this game for 7 years and has spent thousands of hours in mobile shooters, I'm gonna have each and every single one of you by the end of today's video capable of creating your perfect heads-up display, whether there's someone who just wants to casually play Fortnite with friends, or if you've ambitions of being a pro 8-finger tablet player. Understanding the core mechanics and how to set up your own heads-up display and customize button controls in Fortnite mobile is essential to having a great gameplay experience. Now, before I give specific examples of heads-up display layouts each and every single one of you all can copy to then go play with on Fortnite mobile, I think it's important to understand why heads-up displays and customized controls are such a big deal when it comes to Fortnite mobile and really mobile shooters in general. Now, for Fortnite specifically, the 2-finger heads-up display or the base button control layout you get when you first download the game, it's okay, but it limits you in 2 main factors. The first one is comfort. I think if you're watching this video, it's because you're like, these controls are not good. I need to move this button here, or I want to reposition this, or just delete this button. And secondly, the default heads-up display really caps your limit in terms of potential skill long term. If you're someone who enjoys and loves Fortnite mobile and you want to increase your skill, well then playing with 2 fingers on any device is going to be incredibly limiting in terms of the potential of your skill. And so that's why being able to efficiently edit and customize your heads-up display fixes both of those problems, the comfort and the skill issue. And really, mobile as a whole, it is such a unique platform where basically everyone playing has some form of different device. The screen is bigger or smaller, or it's an old phone or it's a new phone, or you have big hands or little hands, big fingers, little fingers. Everyone's preferences and play styles are unique, which is why having the knowledge of how to customize a heads-up display to what works for you and not just what some YouTuber like myself says works for everyone is incredibly important. So although I am going to be giving out some templates and some layouts for different common play styles in this video, the key takeaway I want everyone watching to have is that mobile heads-up displays are incredibly personalized and unique to the actual player, and they're not supposed to be cookie cutter. And now they understand why a heads-up display is so important in Fortnite mobile, let's start customizing it. To do that, they have moved it over the years. It is no longer located in these settings. You can find like all of your other gameplay and graphics and sensitivity settings, which I will be making other videos on in the future, how I recommend people to optimize their settings. But specifically for the heads-up display, it is going to be located still in the settings area, but under the little cog, there's 3 bars. And then at the bottom of this menu right here will be the HUD tool, the heads-up display layout tool. That is what HUD's for, heads-up display. And as soon as you enter it, you're probably not going to see this. You're probably going to see this layout, the default heads-up display layout. You're probably looking at it thinking, what is this? And as soon as you click on this and you go to edit anything, there is so much information thrown at you that it just becomes a little overwhelming. So I'm going to try to break down the basics first and then give some example heads-up displays and some gameplay to go along with each. Now, as soon as you try to modify this heads-up display, it's going to ask you to create a new profile. You are going to want to create a brand new layout, and all of your saved heads-up display layouts will be located right here. This is my main heads-up display layout. It looks a bit odd, looks a bit funky, but this is how it looks on the back end. This is my phone layout, which I will be showing you on an actual phone, not an iPad. And this is the default copy we just made. They used to have way more presets in the game. I actually don't know where they went. It seems like over time they've removed all of the preset heads-up display options, which is terrible for new players. So you will have to start from scratch. And first things first, when dragging this around, I immediately noticed something is on that I hate, and that is grid snap. If you have this on, then it basically like fixes these buttons into specific places on the grid. But if you turn it off, you can put the button wherever you want, which is so much nicer. Now, if you're ever confused on what a button you're looking at does, like this is a literal fire button with the number 3 on it. This is a hand with the number 2 on it. What do these things mean? Right here under the menu, right beside the up arrow, if we tap on a button, this is the use button. So if you're holding an item, you tap it, you'll use it, you'll consume it. This is the ADS button, or it says secondary ability ADS, but I think it's the main ADS button. This is the shoot button. This is the ADS shoot button, which those are, yes, 2 different things on mobile. So you're seeing there is just so much information, and I haven't even shown showed you guys where the rest of the buttons are hiding. This is the list of buttons Fortnite thinks you need to use, and I would agree, but there are some additional buttons in here that aren't being used at all at the moment. And so if for whatever reason you can't find a button on your heads-up display, like, bro, where is this? Just open up this little menu at the bottom of your screen, and you should then be able to see literally every button and heads-up display element in the game, including things like your battery and time and other build buttons and materials. Now, this also brings me to another interesting point, because when you edit these heads-up displays for yourself, you're going to have to understand the links for all of these buttons. And what that means is when I tried to add this material selector to my heads-up display, it said add this element to all modes. Now, for some buttons, that makes sense, but Fortnite obviously isn't just one mode. You have the building mode, the combat mode, and the edit mode. There is jam, but we're not going to worry about jam. Combat, build, and editing are the three modes you can find yourself in within Fortnite. And for me, if I'm building, I want this to be there, but it looks like it is already there. And we can find out what buttons are in each individual mode by, again, opening the drop down at the top. We've got combat, building, edit. We're not going to worry about creative or jam. These are like, I think if you're actually building creative things or playing the jam mode. There is also your drivable car heads-up display, your pirate cannon. Like, it's kind of a mess. They have not cleaned this up in about 5 years because they have the brute gunner. The Brute Gunner was from Chapter 1, Season 10, my boy. That was 6 years ago. So I hope with the re-release of iOS, we get a refresh soon, or at least they clean some things up. But all we need to worry about is the combat, build, and edit mode. Because what you see in the combat mode, as you switch, the buttons slightly change, the layout changes a little. And so that's why when I share the heads-up displays in a moment, I'm going to be sharing the heads-up displays for all three modes. Now, lastly, for the basics, if you want to make a button bigger or smaller, then you want to select it and head to the properties tab. This is where you can edit the links. So let's say you want this button to appear, the sprint button. Maybe I only want to be sprinting when I'm in combat and editing mode. For some reason, I don't want to build mode. If I confirm this, then when I go back to the build mode, that button has now disappeared. So you're starting to see what the link property does and how it affects things. And to simply go find that button again, just go back to the edit mode, and we could go to the properties, edit the link, reselect it, and it is back in the build mode. Now, to understand what these mean, touch zone size, button size, borderless, they are pretty self-explanatory. The touch zone size, if you zoom it up, this is the area the button takes up. If you touch anywhere on the screen, you will sprint. Very self-explanatory. However, if you affect the button size, the yellow outline of this button is still the same, meaning I can click above it, below it, beside it, and it's still registering that touch because the touch zone size is big. So this allows you to have really big button touch areas, but not have them take up your whole screen. Because if this was the button, I don't want to see this on my screen at all points in time. So typically, I like to make my touch zone pretty big, and then I just shrink my button size. But again, it's totally personal preference. And lastly, borderless is exactly what it says. It makes the button much more see-through. So if you're playing on a phone or a smaller screen, then enabling borderless and making the button size really small could still allow you a ton of visibility on your heads-up display without sacrificing actual usability and performance and skill. And so that right there is what I would consider the absolute basics of the heads-up display layout tool in Fortnite. And now I'm going to show you some different layout templates you can use and copy to get yourself started depending on your device. We're going to be starting things off with the 2-finger heads-up display for phones. That is how literally every single person starts playing Fortnite Mobile, and it's probably how most of you are still playing the game today. And if you are, there's no shade, no shame with that. I mean, it is incredibly hard to play with more than 2 fingers. And I know I was just throwing some shade at Epic Games for having the default HUD not be great, but after playing with it for a little bit on my iPhone 15 Pro, I gotta give it to them. It's pretty decent. It's a good starting point. And again, the whole point of this is to move your own buttons around. But I think the default HUD as is, considering everything is already pre-laid out for you, just go from there. If you want to move buttons around or remove buttons off your HUD, I think the 2-finger default HUD layout is a great starting place. But as you're seeing in the gameplay, it's just very limiting in terms of how much skill you can have. And it's really because of the amount of inputs you can have. If you think of a controller player, you've got your 2 thumbs on the controller, but you've also got your 2 fingers on the trigger. So you have 4 modes of input at the same time on a controller. And if you're thinking keyboard and mouse, well, you've got at least 2 inputs on your mouse. You've got 4 or 5 on your keyboard. So you've got 7 total fingers of input on a keyboard and mouse. If you're doing 2 thumbs on a phone, you got 2 little modes of input. So that's why it's so limiting. If you're like, why is it so difficult? It's because of this. And so that's why the rest of the HUDs and heads-up display layouts from here on out are going to be more tailored towards adding more fingers towards your phone, more inputs you can do at the same time, which will just make you a more skilled player. Now, I do want to note this is a 2-finger HUD, but if you want to add a little fire button on the left-hand side of your screen, for some reason it's there in the HUD, but it's not there in the game, just go in the HUD, add a fire button and maybe an edit button over there, and that is a really good way to, if you're on a phone, instead of just using 2 thumbs like this, you just bring this one down and you can use this as the fire button. That's pretty much how all claw gameplay on Fortnite Mobile works, is you're just adding an extra finger to your screen at a time. And speaking of adding extra fingers to your phone, we're going to be jumping from 2 or 3 finger heads-up display all the way up to the 4-finger heads-up display. Now, this is the one that I go to all the time on phone. I think it's a really great core setup for having 4 inputs, your 2 thumbs, your 2 pointer fingers. It allows you to build and move and shoot and point and aim all at the same time. You're not having to pick up your thumb to go press another button. You're not having to look at the 50 buttons in the bottom hand corner and have one thumb do all the work. Basically, we're splitting up the work amongst your fingers, so that way each finger has a little bit of work to do, but it's not, you know, like flipping. If anything, your left pointer finger is doing a lot of the work with switching the builds and in this heads-up display and pressing all of the build buttons. But if you really want to improve your skill on a phone, this is what you need to do. It's not in your settings, it's not aim training, it is literally just adding more fingers to your head display, playing Fortnite Mobile with more fingers. And something to know about this heads-up display is the actual individual buttons for this are starting to be broken up. And I'll show some additional screenshots and how I set this up, but I use the individual hotbar buttons, not the whole hotbar in its entirety. And this way, I'm able to more precisely set them up where they're most optimal for me. And this setup for you guys should be great, because if you follow this setup and you have individual buttons for combat, individual buttons for build, and then you don't need any for the edit mode, it makes it so combat and building should be much more of a fluid thing than having the 6-row long hotbar, the 6-button hotbar. It's a lot to deal with, especially on a phone. You're going to be stretching your finger all the way over there trying to hit the buttons. And so this way you can kind of break things up a little bit, and again, to make the workload easier on your fingers. And since I don't think the screenshots are going to do it justice, basically, I'm using these buttons right here. So in your combat heads-up display, you're going to add 6 of these. You're going to unlink them from everything else. I don't, put in the quad crusher. I don't know. All these HUDs are so chalked anyways. And then in the properties, you're going to make the slot type combat, and then you're going to make sure, one button is 1, 1 is 2, 1 is 3, so on and so forth. And then so that way in the build mode, you can place your build buttons wherever you want. It's the same thing. These buttons are right here at the bottom. They are the build slot type. There is the automatic, so that way if you switch between build and combat, you don't have to have 2 separate buttons. For me, I've always done it. It's more complicated, it's more effort up front, but I think it reaps a much bigger reward in the end. And so again, you want to have just these buildings, just these buttons for the build mode. And then for me, I do have a permanent pyramid here. That is total preference. It just makes it so I can enter build mode easier sometimes, or if that's just how I, again, split the workload up between my fingers. So this is just an example from my iPad, but it's the same on an iPhone or any phone. You just make sure the slot type is build, or the slot type is combat. You can mess around with automatic, and again, that's the beauty of this. Just mess around and see what works for you. Now we're switching over to the tablet heads-up displays, and I'm not going to include a 2 or 3 finger heads-up display, because honestly, if you're using a tablet of any kind, it is so much easier to use 4 fingers or more at this point in the game. And if you're using a tablet for Fortnite Mobile, there's a good chance you've already played on a phone, then you have some skill. If not, again, the 2-finger default HUD is a great place to start, but 4 fingers is where the skill level really starts to come through. You're building again fluidly, you're editing fluidly, you're looking much more like a controller or PC player, again, because you're using the same amount of inputs as these platforms have. Now this one, I play on a massive 13-inch tablet. So for me, this is the best 4-finger HUD I could make, again, as a base. Please feel free, everything moving around. The sprint button, I noticed, was a little weird for me to hit it with my other thumb, but because my tablet's so big, on a smaller tablet, this design would definitely work a little better. But again, resize remove, change, put your jump button where the aim is. It doesn't matter. That's the whole point of this, is to give you guys good frameworks and then go and build from there. I use the same trick with this heads-up display as I use in all of my multi-finger heads-up displays, where the buttons are individual slots, not the whole bar. So I have the combat ones again, and then I've also got the build buttons. But I hope you're starting to see from the progression of 2-finger phone to 4-finger iPad, just the skill gap difference. And yes, that's one, because I played this game for many years, but two, because that's truly the reality of adding more fingers to your phone. Again, the bigger the screen, the easier it is to do this. I would say 4 fingers on a phone is typically where you start to max out, and 4 fingers on a tablet is kind of really where you start at. And after 4 fingers, you just get into complete madness, because this is where we're entering the realm of 6 or more fingers used to play Fortnite Mobile. I typically use 7 fingers, but this heads-up display, I actually played the whole game through with 6 fingers, and I think I actually won it. So even though I use 7 fingers, again, I'm just kind of rotating my hands. Instead of having 6, I kind of just add my 2, or I add my ring finger, I think, on my right hand. I move it over a little bit, so that way we can add 7. It's not needed at all. It's not necessary, but 6 fingers and above, if you go to 7 or 8, you don't see those huge returns, like from 2 to 3, pretty big jump; from 3 to 4, really big jump; from 4 to 6, again, a sizable jump; but from like 6 to 8, you might get a little bit. It's really just personal preference at that point. It's really up to you if you think you need those fingers, if your device is big enough to have in the first place. Since I use a 13-inch tablet, basically the size of a laptop, I've got the screen real estate to add extra buttons and fingers and whatnot. And this has been my heads-up display for years. I really have not touched most of it because my muscle memory is so locked in, and I haven't really mentioned it up to this point. But muscle memory is also such a key factor with any shooter, with any game in particular, but mobile specifically, because it's such a foreign input style for most people. They're not used to playing on a mobile device. It is going to require much more consistency and muscle memory to really lock in those heads-up displays and those button combinations. So I know I am suggesting you all today to change your heads-up display, but ultimately you don't want to be changing a button every match. You at least want to go through a full match. If something feels terribly wrong, yeah, move the button, reposition it, change it, but don't do radical changes every single game. Because even in some of these gameplays, I was messing up because my mind, I think jump, I do a certain action, and that's the kind of muscle memory you want to build with mobile to become unstoppable. Once you have a heads-up display you're comfortable with, of course, make minor tweaks, adjustments if someone recommends something, change something, but don't just go straight from 2 to 4 to 6 to 3 every day. Like, you're just never going to build any sort of permanent muscle memory that can really help your skill evolve over time. And well, folks, there you have it. I hope this guide has been helpful in allowing you to become a better, or at least more confident Fortnite mobile player. The heads-up display controls is definitely the trickiest part of mastering Fortnite Mobile, but I hope from just the basic settings to some of the templates that I provided that you are able to be a better and more confident Fortnite Mobile player. I hope in the future they add the ability for players to share heads-up display layouts between other players. I have been requesting this for like 5 years, bro, and no one's listened to me up to this point. I mean, every other mobile game has it, so hopefully Fortnite Mobile soon will have it. If that ever happens, I will definitely make sure to drop HUD codes down below in the description so you can copy them and paste them. It's not out yet. I don't know if it's ever going to happen, but I really hope one day we can share our heads-up displays through a simple copy and paste code. If you've got any questions, feel free to leave them down below in the comment section. I'll do my best to help everyone out who has any questions about layouts or phones or fingers, whatever, because ultimately, like, this is what makes a mobile. Being able to go from, starting out as 2 fingers to evolving and becoming a skilled mobile player is really what I think separates like the casual mobile player from the mobile players who grind every single day. So again, hope you enjoyed today's video. If you got any amount of help from this, subscribing to the channel will be greatly appreciated. With all being said, it's been Ducky. Catch you guys in the next one. Deuces.